This year, Frank Zappa would have turned 70, and this coincides with this tour you're on. Can you tell us a bit about this tour? What is it? A special conceptual idea, or?
Well, I think that this particular tour is not that much different than any of the previous tours that we've done since 2006, but because there's this air of celebration around Frank, and you know, he would have been 70, we have decided to do a couple of things that are more to maybe unify the fan base even more, and we've taken one of his classic albums, Apostrophe, and we've learned the whole record, and we play the whole record in sequence, but Frank also joins us on stage on video. He plays guitar and sings on a few songs, and we've also learned a few selected numbers that are real fan favorites that have people been requesting for a long time. So it's really much more of a celebration type of atmosphere in the music, and you know, it's been a really fun tour.
You say Apostrophe, and that's a very classic Zappa album, Apostrophe, Overnight Sensation. Do you pick music from a special period of time to this project?
Well, usually in the past, what we've done is really just try to select the things that really focus on the iconic elements in Frank's music, the things that I want people to know more so than what they think they already know about him. You know, so because I feel like his music is very much misunderstood, because he was a composer, a classical composer who happened to use a rock band as his orchestra for the most part. I mean, he did work with orchestras as well, but his music is very orchestral, very cinematic in a lot of ways. So I chose most of the time to emphasize those elements and not so much the comedy aspect, because a lot of people do have the misconception that he was just like a novelty act, like Weird Al Yankovic or something, you know. So, and I actually think Weird Al Yankovic's good and funny, but you know, I think that Frank has so many more elements to his music, and so we try to put all those on display. But in this tour, you know, it's all there within Apostrophe and some other things as well. Hold on, let's get this belt. Thanks. Thank you.
A few of Frank's old bandmates have appeared as guest musicians in your project, but your project also consists of young and never heard of musicians. How do you pick musicians for this project?
Well, it's a challenge. The music itself is very difficult, and it requires a lot of discipline. The people that can play it, the biggest challenge you have is finding people who have the right kind of personality and attitude, people that you would actually want to spend time with, you know, because the skill required, you know, doesn't necessarily always create the type of person that you want to be around, you know, because there are plenty of people that might have the required skill, but you don't want to know them, you know, because they're just not fun to hang out with. So it was a challenge to put the band together. I was lucky to find people that were in a younger age range, which was, you know, part of the goal anyway, because I feel like Frank's music is very, very much, it's a timely, you know, his music it's timeless in general. So I didn't want to relate his music to nostalgia, even though people think of this as a cover band. It's so much more than what that is. You know, cover bands are related to nostalgia and, you know, people thinking, oh, this is my parents' generation. This is just this goofy evening. I'm going to go check out this thing that doesn't really relate to today. But Frank's music does relate to today. And so to help emphasize that, I wanted a younger band. And I knew that, you know, there were going to be people that perhaps had no affiliation with Frank or didn't even know his music, but they had the right skills. So that's what I ended up with. I found a lot of people that really just had the right skills and then fell in love with the music through the process of learning it. And I know that the audience can do that as well. As far as people that played with my dad before, alumni, you know, that was something that we've done and still continue to do on occasion. And it's just sort of it's like extra frosting on the cake, you know.
Yeah, playing with Frank Zappa was considered to be like a musician school of very high grade. So you're still running this school in a way then?
Well, yeah, I mean, the people that are in the band, you know, we've all grown as musicians through this process, the things that we've learned to do on our own instruments, and just being exposed to through the music, you know, it's improved all of our skills. So, you know, it definitely is what you're saying. You know, it's like going through a university course or something. And speaking to that, I've actually started a thing that we call Dweezil, which is a music school. And the whole band teaches. We do one-on-one lessons, but we also do group things. There's all kinds of events. You know, it's a 4-day intensive musical boot camp. And we started doing that because we all felt as a band that we had so much to offer through our experience that it would be helpful to younger musicians and musicians who have been around, you know, who are frustrated in their creative plateau or their skill level and just want to have something to give them a boost.
For your own part, I mean, Frank Zappa played guitar in a very special, personal and complex way.
Yeah.
How did you take on the task to do this work, to play his solos note by note, as I know you do, and all the other guitar works? But you have to be very skillful. I mean, you are. But how did you take on that task?
You know, it's a difficult question. The easiest answer is a lot of practice. You know, but I mean, ultimately, what's required it works on so many levels. You know, Frank's guitar playing is very idiosyncratic. You know, his style of phrasing is what's so difficult because he uses so many polyrhythms, and he was a drummer to begin with. So what happens in the way that he's playing, you know, is that he's using rhythmic devices and attaching notes to them. Now, guitar players generally don't think that way. Guitar players play guitar licks. They're organized patterns that they're used to. They can play them and repeat them, and they only have like a small bag of tricks. Now, Frank, you know, would not repeat himself. He really reacted in the moment, in the improvisational moment, to creating music in that moment. It's very different than here's my next greatest guitar lick, you know. So that was a challenge to change my mental process, much more so than change the physical process. That was also a challenge, but you know, I really had to study a lot of the mental side of where he was coming from, and that really changed what I was capable of as a player.
I know that Frank Zappa also had a few, what should I say, original expressions. Like when rehearsing with Ensemble Modern, it was said that Frank was satisfied to a certain degree. Said this is okay, this is good, but please now do the whole thing again, and now play with eyebrows.
Yeah.
What's that, playing with eyebrows?
Well, the playing with eyebrows really refers to he had the ability to write a part on paper, but you know, it's one thing to just play it exactly as it's written. It's another to really know where the musical joke might be in there, where all the real emphasis of the dynamics and all of the things that give it personality. So all of those intrinsic elements that are, you know, instructions by the composer, those are what he would basically describe as the eyebrows. You know, so he liked to have layers and layers and layers of things happening all at once. So where somebody at first might think they're hearing a piece of music and understanding it one way, the next listen they get a different level of understanding, and that's again part of the eyebrows. It's not just, you know, you play the A chord for 4 bars and then you play the B chord for 4 bars. There's all these things that are layered in there, lots of details, and that's why people really enjoy his music for a long period of time, because it has this endless repeat listening value. There's so many details that you discover in all the instrumentation.
So you have to recreate this towards your own musicians in this project. They have to play with eyebrows as well.
Right. Well, and that's the difference in what you'll hear, what we play versus other bands that play Frank's music, and it's really because we're studying all of the elements within the music. For example, just the actual tones of the instruments, you know, like guitar tone or a keyboard sound, all of those things are specifically chosen by Frank to give it a certain kind of character, you know, and so we work really hard to try to recreate those same kind of things, because that, to me, is part of the composition. It's part of what makes it sound the way it does. When you try to mix it all together, there's a certain amount of frequencies that can go together, and if you're outside of that, you know, a part's going to get lost. So we really try to recreate the puzzle as much as we possibly can. I mean, we even go to the great lengths of taking the tapes out of the master, you know, the vault. We take the master tapes, and if we can't transcribe something from an actual stereo recording, we go to the multitrack to go to individual parts to get exactly what was played, because we want it to be like what people hear. And the reason that we do it is, you know, if no one has heard the music before, if you got somebody who's brand new and they're coming to this for the first time, we want them to get the best impression of the music. So if they hear us and then they want to hear the original, they're hearing something that is going to be relatively the same thing. You know, we don't try to change it, and that's on purpose. You know, it's not our job to, you know, you don't have an orchestra playing a Beethoven piece and then saying, hey, let me throw this new part in the middle, you know? So a lot of times when people do cover material, they try to change it, add their own spin to it, and that's great. It works great with a lot of other people's music, just not with Frank's, you know, because he really was a composer, and it's supposed to go how it's written. And that's just my feeling on it, you know.
What did you think about your father's music when you grew up? I mean, when did you realize all these things that you have explained now?
I always loved the music, and I always knew it was sophisticated and complex, and I knew that I didn't know anywhere near enough about it when I was younger to be able to play it in the way that it would need to be played. So years later, when I decided to take on this task, you know, I really studied the music for several years before I even put the band together. But I always knew that it was something that was special, that, you know, really nobody chose the same path, and nobody ever will, you know. I mean, it's music that is, you know, he is one of the most unique composers that ever lived. So it's, you know, it's fantastic music, and I love to be able to play it, and I love to be immersed in it.
Thanks for your time.
Sure.